All board games are trying to tell a story, and Oltree is no exception. In this game, you and your fellow players will take on the role of rangers, working together to rebuild an old fortress while solving problems and incidents around the region, as well as a mysterious overarching narrative. Oltree is a cooperative game when you will take on the role of rangers, running around this little area, trying to not only build up the castle, but deal with these cards as a narrative goes on, which will determine the pace of the game and the overarching story of what is happening in this land. Now, before the big game begins, let's actually focus on this board. You're going to actually choose one of these stories. This is the one they suggest at the beginning. It's considered short. There are 5 other ones included in the base game. Those are all long. In addition to that, there is an assignment card that you can choose to go along with that. These assignments, while not mandatory, will make it easier for you to defeat the final task at the end of the story. They have different difficulties, as well as defining the kinds of encounters you will see while playing the game. Now onto the player's turns. Your turn starts by rolling this adversary die. This will tell you how much the adversary marker here moves, triggering what encounters and bad problems you'll have to deal with. Most of the times you'll move 1, like so, and you will deal with what each of these encounters will entail. The first one is turning the next page in the book. This will go like so. It'll have a unique storyline. It may give you some bonuses or penalties, of course, depending on the story. You'll turn the page one at a time until you reach the end, which will usually have a final challenge for you to complete, either depending on how you've been doing with your tasks over here or what else has happened throughout the story. Could be very challenging or easy. Next up are incidents. When going here, you're going to add incidents to one of the 4 regions. These are important because if you're able to empty a region out of incidents, as well as build a tower, this allows you to secure the area. This means 1, it can't get more incidents, as well as helping you complete some of these tasks, as you can see here, require a certain number of green shields, the secure markers. Moving along, we got problem cards. These are these cards you see here. They cover up these spaces, which are actions you can do while visiting there in order to get usually resources, pretty much clogging up the board and giving you less choices. Finally, there's the event deck. This deck has either one-time or effects that are constant until it is covered. While there are different possible outcomes, the truth is they're all bad. Once it reaches the end of the advisory track, it's going to go back around to the beginning, repeating the actions. I forgot to mention, throughout the game, if something refers you to choose one of these random sectors of the board, you will roll a die, and that number is where that card or problem, event, token will go. So once you've dealt with all the fun adversary stuff, it is now your turn to do some actions. On your turn, you can perform 2 actions, which must be different, as well as any bonus actions you may achieve from either your character ability or maybe some other cards that may come along. You, of course, will be represented by these beautiful little knights on horses. I guess rangers technically, but to me, they're knights. And the first option you can do, quite simple and probably what you'd expect, is moving. You can move to an adjacent area like this, or to the center castle, which is connected to all areas. If you are ever in one of these outer areas, you can perform the call to action ability. That will involve whatever the empty space here is, usually gaining a resource. Keep in mind, if there is a problem card there, you cannot perform the call to community action there as there's a problem blocking the way. Next, you can deal with an incident that involves taking this card, flipping it over, reading the little story, and often performing either a check or possibly a choice. You will do whatever it says, and the outcomes will be listed to you depending on your successes and failures, and afterwards would actually be removed from the board. Like I said, you are trying to get spaces empty in order to secure them. Sometimes, instead of dealing with the incidents, you may want to deal with the problems. Now, the problems here come in 2 different flavors mostly. It's either spending a resource or doing a skill check and trying to get that many number of successes. However, unlike some of the ones in the incidents and story, let's say, for example, this one requires 2 successes. If you roll and, well, that was actually 2, but if we were to get something like that, you will mark that you got 1 success, meaning you can slowly build up the number of successes needed to defeat these. Granted, it's mostly 1 or 2. Once you do complete this, you will remove it, giving you access to the cult community on that spot again. While you are in the fortress, you will have the option to repair the place by either building new buildings or repairing buildings. New buildings or towers is simple. They have a resource cost here, and you will take the item, so let's say this building, and add it to an empty space by discarding whatever resources are necessary. All resources gained are actually put in the center of the castle and are shared amongst all players. The exception being rations, these bread tokens. We'll get to those in a little bit. The main reason to make buildings is to increase your stats. You see, everyone is sharing most of their stats. You will roll dice based on one of these 4 symbols, and depending on the number of symbols appearing within this fortress, as well as on your character, will determine the number of dice rolled for all checks. For example, if this character was trying to roll for the sword combat here, there's 1 on their board, as well as 1 printed here and 1 for the building that we just built, totaling 3 dice. However, currently with a book check, there's only 1 symbol printed there, none on her own character board, so only 1 die would be rolled. Buildings may be damaged along the way. You have the option to repair them simply by performing the check on there and making sure you get a success. Finally, this is a long and tough journey, and of course, you're probably going to take some hits in health as well as eat your rations. On your turn, you also have the option to spend an action to rest, which is gaining a health as well as a ration. Those rations, by the way, have 2 uses. You can spend 1 in order to re-roll dice, or 2 to take a bonus action. Bonus actions, remember, do not care what your other actions are, so they can be used to repeat an action if you really need to either do multiple builds, movements, or dealing with cards on the board. Keep in mind there are 2 tracks, defense and prestige. These will increase and decrease throughout the game. If they ever hit the bottom value, you actually lose the game, so that is a way you can lose before you actually hit the end of the chronicle. This is the basic game loop. The main timer of the game is the chronicle that you chose here, the story. And once you hit a certain page, it's usually going to give you a final test or check. And if you're able to meet the conditions, you can either fail, get a minor victory, or a major victory. I won't lie, this game reminds me a lot of Arkham Horror. You are playing a specific scenario and story, and you have to roam around a map where there are decks of cards. You flip them, they have their own little story, then usually involve you doing a skill test of some sort, rolling dice, being very angry when they all come out blank, or very happy when you get the just amount of successes you need, and of course continuing until you reach the end of the story and hoping that you do better. The chronicles are really fun to do that when flipping through and seeing what's going on, some of them even giving you special bonus actions for you to try and complete, such as building something or spending specific resources for that may give you bonuses or penalties later on. And I enjoyed that because not only are these stories give a unique flavor, there are going to be some unique pieces here. As you can see, the symbols on the back, that's actually going to match the symbols on the chronicle, specifically designed for that chronicle. So there may be other tricks and fun little interactions that may pop up depending on which one you choose to play with. The incident cards also have a little bit of flavor on them in story, like I showed before. That said, they are not tied at all to the chronicle you're playing. They are tied to this card, the assignment card. And even then, it's not like, for example, the assignment says a new start. They're not going to relate to whatever it is. If one, I think, was called Reigniting the Forge, for example, you're not all going to be involved with forges or collecting resources for that. It just, there are sort of, I can't remember 4 or 5 incident types off the top of my head. And they deal like one's more nature things, one's more magic stuff, but they're cute and fun in their own way. Now, as for the assignment cards, I love this because I feel board games, this is one of the big issues, I think, comparing video games to board games, and in particular, cooperative board games, is there isn't a very good difficulty scaler. This I like, as you can still play through the stories, but if you just want to play, for example, on a more easier setting, not even because you don't think you can handle it, but sometimes that's just what you want to do. I like playing certain video games on easier just so I can experience the story. That allows for it. And not being attached to the different chronicles and making it simply just making it harder or easier to play through those chronicles, I think was a really wise move on their part. And it really, I think, makes it easier to get this game to the table, whether it's for more hardened veterans or newcomers. By the way, I gotta do a quick shout out for the components in this game. I mean, look at these. These are gorgeous. These Rangers, So cool. I love not only the color, but each one is unique in their position and really show off the character. And of course, what you haven't seen yet is the box. You know, I love me a good insert. And this one has a whole thing built up, drawers for you to open and close for everything. They obviously put in that extra bit of detail and obviously the art as well, but also making a very beautiful looking game. Now, as for the event deck, that annoyed me because really that's just bad stuff.deck. There is nothing good in there. The few cards I liked in there are actually ones that permanently stay involved the board. There are some that may put a mark here like that, blocking the path, meaning that you have something bad happening, but it's more about how you can deal around it versus some of them are just lose a resource, or the most annoying ones where you cannot do community call cards as long as it's out, and just felt like, great, now we need to wait until the entire thing cycles because we all lost an action. Because there isn't a lot of weird interactions, I just felt like most of the bad stuff just were a pain rather than me really trying to come up with new strategies. Like, I don't even need a lot of good things in there. I would like a few good things in there, maybe like a breath of fresh air, like nothing happens kind of deal. But I really like things like this that are not like it's bad, but it isn't just, well, we just have to wait till it's gone, or, well, that stinks. It's more strategy shifting, maybe like shift all the problems over one. That could be great for you, could be terrible because you really needed fired and you have to change things up. I just wish that deck had a bit more variety, I guess, to it besides just here, bad thing. Now, I want to focus on the castle, as that's really the character here. You are playing as these characters with unique powers, which I'm going to get to, but unlike a lot of other cooperative games, I feel that have a skill check aspect to it. Instead of being like, okay, my character, like this one has a sword, but a lot of the other ones will used to be like, okay, I have 4 swords, so I need to do all the military combat checks. And if I come across a non-military one, I'm going to be in trouble. In this, while you will have a slight advantage by making the buildings being what everyone shares, it's a lot easier for everyone to have a chance at different skills. You can discuss what you're building because let's say you feel like, look, depending on the story, I think we need to build those combat things early, just in case, because I had the book stat, I need more combat dice for that to come up. There's a bit more discussion about that, and I like the communal also sharing resources. It's the kind of thing I like in a cooperative game that makes it so everyone at the table has a reason to discuss how they interact with that board. And that's important too, because these dice, I mean, they're technically 50-50. One of them is you have to lose a health to get the success. Sometimes we've had games when there wasn't like a single test we failed. Others, which ironically, the very first game I played falls under this one. We were rolling like 3 or 4 dice and just constantly getting blanks with bread rerolls, rerolls. There are plenty of different powers that you can have. I mean, as any cooperative game, I think certain people are more powerful than others, especially if they really focus on giving you bonus actions. But the bigger thing I want to point out that became an issue for me is you see there is a little no sign there. I don't know what else you call it. And whenever your health hits or is below there, like if your health gets down like that, you lose access to your power. This is where the sort of double-edged sword, since you're not really speccing in buying your own items and resources to be like, I'm the military guy, that everyone can do almost what you do. Their power is what makes you unique. So once it's off, you're a vanilla warrior. And that can feel really depressing. Now, there are plenty of ways to get health back on spaces, the resting. My problem really comes up more with half the game. Now, you see these 4 characters, not only do I think they have some of the stronger abilities, but most of their powers are down at least multiple hits. Like you can take 2, 3, 4 hits before they lose their power. This character, on the other hand, immediately loses their power really quickly. This is not a game that at least I felt that you should feel comfortable at full health. Like I said, some of these dice results may require you to pay a health. So with half the characters having powers that immediately leave the board or the field if you lose health, you could even be playing it safe, trying to just deal with problems which you shouldn't lose health unless you pay the cost. And then, once again, that event deck, everyone loses a health. There are plenty of cards that say that. And it feels really annoying to just so easily lose the one thing that makes you unique. I like the concept of it, and that's why I thought playing with these four characters once again, the ones who have a bit more leeway with their health, I felt that was a bit more enjoyable and a lot more fun too. When there were times when putting this character down, for example, if I can fit him on the board, if he's at this much health, it's much more interesting to do you pay for that success? I might shut off my power. Maybe I can go up and get some health first. Like there's a bit more, I think, wiggle room for debate and strategy once again, not just yay or nay. So that is something that I found to be a little disappointing in some of the characters. So it's less the power, but rather what gives them the ability to turn it on and off. There is still plenty to do if you don't have powers. It's not the end of the world. I don't think I ever felt like we've lost a game because someone was quote unquote turned off. It's just one of those things. It just feels bad if it's really easy to lose it. The rest of the game, like I said, I did enjoy actually being able to talk with people, and I feel there was much more of a rewarding presence. I mean, I always hate having to run across the board to trade a resource with someone. So being able to have everything shared in the center, I think is a real smart move for a cooperative game. And the story elements are really cute and fun with some of the choices. And the Chronicles, I like that it comes with this short one to help teach and learning on, as well as 5 longer ones. I think it's 5, and now I'm doubting myself. I'm almost certain I looked it up before. I'm sorry. And they each have, I think, different enough theme that I felt like was pretty good in terms of what topics they come across. Some of them do have, I guess you can call it a narrative split. They'll say like, if you have this or this, or make a choice for this or this, discard A or discard B. That said, this game is designed to be a bit more of a streamlined cooperative game, so they didn't really take it to the far edges of like you make a choice in the beginning and you're going to go down a significant passage before you find out like the consequences of your choice. And I think that's understandable, especially in a base game setting where, once again, this game feels like it was designed to be a cooperative game that is very easy to get to the table. And for the most part, I think they succeeded. Yes, I don't like luck, but telling someone to roll dice is not something that is hard for them to understand. Skills could be something new you come across, but because you are each working together on your skills, you don't have like, am I a book person again? Right, you have 3 book, everyone is sharing it. It's much easier for everyone to build up and not feel guilty like, oh, I need that item because I need to boost my stat because it's low, or do we give the person to boost higher? You're sharing everything. And of course, when the powers are working, some of them can feel really fun, especially when they give you those extra actions. It just sort of stinks if you feel like your character board is blank most of the time because you happen to just take a little bit of damage. Crits and misses for Oltree. Crits. Having your resources being pulled together, as well as the stats you use for tests being mostly based on how you build up the central castle, I believe to be a fantastic choice for a cooperative game. This helps twofold. First off, this really does feel cooperative. Everything is shared, everything you build up together helps everyone. The second option is making you feel less guilty that you specialized in something and coming across your weakness in a test. This helps mitigate the bad feelings of when you went all in on something like strength and happened to just flip the card that wanted a knowledge test. The Chronicle tests are fun, and having their own stories, each with their own unique components, I think was a great choice, as well as being the timer for the game. As you flip the pages, literally, for this Chronicle, you will not only progress the story, but the game length. As the story comes to a close, so will the game. I also love the fact that the assignment cards exist, as separating difficulty from the Chronicles allows for players to experience any Chronicle, but play it at any difficulty. Yes, I'm sure some Chronicles may be harder for some based on what comes out and what's blocked. You won't feel bad for wanting to check out a specific storyline, but it doesn't match the difficulty you want to play at. The components of this game were extremely well done, and they are beautiful in every aspect, including the box. I point this out in particular as a crit, as combined with the previous things I've mentioned, such as the assignment cards, as well as the combining the stats and the resources. This really feels like it was designed to bring people to the table and be excited to play, both mechanically and visually. Misses. The mechanics here are pretty much all luck-based, depending on which cards come out and what the dice rolls are. It pretty much means you're at the mercy of fate a lot of the times. This can sometimes feel really annoying, especially if you just get a string of bad luck. Honestly, a lot of this game is relying on the story parts. I love the story parts. I like the idea of the Chronicles and the encounter decks, but if that's not for you, be it you don't like the theme of this game, or in particular, that's not the kind of thing that draws you to a board game in general, I don't think there's much else this game has to offer unless you just happen to like rolling dice. It's always good when you feel like you have some unique power, and in this case, you do. Your character does have a power only available to them. The problem is it can be shut off sometimes. I actually like this effect in practice, with the exception of certain characters. It is really easy to have your ability removed from you. So much so that I felt like these characters almost felt like they might as well be blank cards a lot of the time. And because of that, I felt that certain characters were significantly more powerful, not because of the stat or actual power they had, but rather they simply just had wiggle room, which made it a lot more fun for you to play as them and decide whether it's more worth it to have health or power at certain times. I find that this game does have a lot of great things going for it. I love the story aspect. I'm always a theme guy, and having the pages slowly turn was absolutely fun. Reading little encounters like this is always something I enjoy. I just wish they were a bit more integrated. Not really a miss per se, just something that I want more. It makes me excited to take another bite, and I wish there were more ways for me to take a bite of the story. And separating difficulty that is based on the card here, I keep always forgetting assignment card, versus having the stories being difficult was such a smart move. It allows you to really play any story you want and gear it for who's at the table. And the central building and sort of pulling of both resources and stats, I think, is overall a great choice. While I did mention the miss, I don't like the powers being turned off really so easily, in essence making it so you don't have anything unique. I don't think it was because it was such a bad thing that you shouldn't do this style. I think this works really well and really making everything feel cooperative. You don't have to worry about trading actions, and this does mitigate the oftentimes problems in Arkham, a game I love, when you hate that you come across a skill test that you are not spec'd in. That is something that can be annoying a lot of the times. You're like, oh, no, why did it have to be willpower? Why did that have to come up now? You may have an extra die. Each character has one symbol on their board, but for the most part, everyone should be decent at doing certain checks, and that extra die could be helpful later on. And the turning off powers thing, I'm actually like the idea of that mechanic. I just don't like the ones that, like this character who feels a shame. I think her power's cool, and I just wish it didn't feel it was so easy. The times when I played them, I just felt more times I didn't have it than I did when I played the other characters. Yes, I do feel like some of these characters have really good abilities. I just didn't feel like I at least felt like I had the options, more interesting decisions when thinking of gaining health, when to lose health, how long can I get away with it before my power turns off kind of deal, and just having it more access to the power. Overall, I do think this game is a fantastic cooperative game that if you enjoy co-op, you really should take a look at. Not only do I really like how the narrative is weaved throughout the cards, but I think it is really easy for you to adjust the difficulty for your play group that isn't a way that makes you feel guilty depending on which story you want to play. And the pulling together for both stat and resources, I think, is overall a very wise move, as not only does it make players discuss more of what they want to build and reward everyone at the table for what's billed usually. It's not just I get the cool item and you don't. But it also mitigates those bad time feelings when you come across a certain skill challenge that you did not specialize in. Yes, I really don't like it that the power's turned off. Luck is a huge issue. As long as you're having a fun story, who cares if you have a few failures along the way? Let me know what your thoughts on this are, and in particular in cooperative games. How much luck are you okay with? How much do you feel a story matters to you? How do you balance these kinds of things when it comes to the games you want to play? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. And of course, thank you so much for reaching the end. If you think someone would be interested in this game, please share this video with them. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. But until then, I'm Will, and this has been Roll for Crit.